Right, League Cup semi-finals, Arsenal. Guys, man, it's just like it's a tipsy-turvy balance, this game. I'll never get sick of this fixture. I will 100% get sick of this fixture. 5 days after their 4-3 WSL1 defeat to Arsenal, Man City got their revenge in the League Cup semi-final. Rach, what do we think went wrong for Arsenal this time round?
As is so often the case, and it's something we've said quite a lot, is that the team who loses learns more and often comes back better. And I think we saw that from City against United, and I think we saw it again against Arsenal. Both teams made changes, but I feel like the changes City made worked well for them, maybe less so for Arsenal. They just didn't really come out with the same intensity as the previous fixture. They kind of took a little while to get going. Whereas, City looked sharper. Carolyn started. She was so rapid down the wing. Miedema dropped into that number 10 role. Fowler went into the 9. Miedema showing why she's world class in that position as well. And I felt like she was offering more centrally as opposed to just relying on those balls out wide and crosses in. And I think it was like just another weapon for City to use. And of course, Mary Fowler on absolute flying form, which was very convenient for them, bagging a brace in dramatic fashion. I tell you what, I was absolutely freezing. The game had kicked off delayed, right? Meant to kick off at 7. Then we got told at 7:05 that we weren't going to kick off at 7. No shit. Delayed to 7:15. Then at 7:15 we were told it was delayed to 7:30. Honestly,
wait, what was the delay for?
The ambulance broke down. They couldn't start the game without an ambulance on site. So
I see.
I
That's
was very
worrying.
close to going back to my car. And then as we tick closer to 92, 93 minutes, I was like, it's going to go to extra time. This has already been the longest match of my life. I can't feel my hands or my toes. I considered going and sitting and watching the extra time from my car. But no, Mary Fowler popped up, put the game to bed in regulation time and took them through to the final. So yeah, I think Arsenal deserved to get a goal back, but I think City deserved the win.
I think Arsenal looks sluggish. I was really disappointed with their performance, to be honest. I didn't think, again, it didn't seem like to be the same squad. That it was the inconsistency, I think, for me. You don't expect Arsenal to be that inconsistent, like especially when they've found so much form under Renee. But it felt like a completely different squad, and it wasn't a completely different squad. Like obviously changes, but it wasn't too far away from their winning form. So I couldn't really work out what wasn't working this time round, considering they've played this fixture so many times.
What I thought was interesting again was the Russo-Blackstenius pairing and having Russo out wide and Blackstenius up front. And I just found it, unusual. You had Beth Mead on the bench. It just would have made sense to have an option off the bench up front for Arsenal. And I appreciate that, City didn't get the winner until the death. But, in terms of looking to win that game, 60, 70 minutes, you're like, okay, we need to get back into this. What are the options in terms of a number 9? And I think with Russo being put out on the wing, you kind of lose that option. You could have had a Beth Mead playing that position. Now, I don't know, maybe she's injured, maybe she's can't play 90 minutes at the minute, I don't know. But at least you would have had Blackstenius, okay, you've had your 60, 70 minutes, let's bring on something fresh and maybe give you that impetus that you need and was perhaps missing. And it was kind of the same at the end of the previous game where you're like, who's going to come off the bench up front for Arsenal to change it? And they went with the same thing again. I guess maybe they thought it worked last time out. But I just think maybe that came back and bit them a little bit because they didn't have that option.
Well, we've definitely got to talk about City, and like you just mentioned, Mary Fowler, a little bit of a star of the show, opened the scoring and secured the winner in the final minutes of extra time. I mean, you mentioned there sort of how spicy she was in that game, but we've seen it in the previous car. I can't remember what the cross that was delivered in. Was this the last time they faced each other or the time before they faced? I'm getting confused now. But the header at the back post, I will always remember that goal as being I don't know, it was just a beautiful goal. But yeah, we think that she's found her form obviously in recent weeks and seems to be sort of coming to the forefront a little bit more.
Yeah, and I also think it's a combination of finding her form, but also those relationships clicking. And I think respect to her to be able to maintain that form coming from wide into a central role and still being on form. I think a lot of that's coming down to confidence and how impactful she's been in previous fixtures. She had a couple of opportunities to get goals. I think she got one that was offside. But her link up with Miedema was finding her every time. And, as I said, finding those balls through the middle, they were finding balls in the back of the Arsenal defence numerous times. And it didn't seem like, particularly in the first half, that Arsenal were reacting wasn't quick enough to that. So yeah, there's definitely a real confidence in her play. Like when you compare that to the end of last season when Bunny Shaw got injured and players are kind of being mixed around a little bit and none of them are really finding their feet or feeling super confident in that position. Totally different story now. She's bagging the goals, she's confident, and the more goals she gets, the more confident she is and the better she seems to be. So yeah, long may it live.
Do you think it looks a little bit scary, that kind of link Fowler and Miedemar? And what also is going to be the new name? What are we going to have as the Fowler-Miedemar link-up? We've not really thought about that, and that's one of the key questions.
I can't lead with Miedler. That doesn't. It's going to have to be Foudma. I don't know. Foudama.
That doesn't even make sense.
Mary Dema? Meadery? I don't know. We'll brainstorm. That's another one we need to brainstorm.
From you. Listeners, please submit your much better suggestions for that link up between Mary Fowler and Miedemar. We think there needs to be some kind of iconic name that really represents the duo and the relationship those two are building. On Mary Fowler, she has scored 5 goals and got 3 assists in her last 5 games in all competitions. So she is definitely spicing herself up in the WSL, and I'm for it. Do we think this kind of run of form and this win has kind of eased the pressure off of GT, or do we think actually his cards are still sort of fairly marked?
I think winning a trophy is always going to be a very, very beneficial thing for a manager.
Silverware,
Yes, look, we've had it with, say, Mark Skinner, we've had it with Jonas Eidevall, where you think, okay, calm down, we got a trophy, there's only 3 or 4 if you're in the Champions League. If you're not, there's only 3 available, we got one of them. That's got to be seen as a good thing.
A 33% success rate is fairly good.
So I think, should they win this, huge. If particularly given, and I know we're going to touch on it, the fact that they're going to be playing Chelsea so many times, to get that win could be a huge boost for them. And I guess they're going to look at that as that it's a final, it's a one game, it's a cup, anything can happen. With Bunny Shaw coming back as well, with Miedema on fire, with Fowler on fire, it's going to give them a huge amount of confidence. And they were lacking that in the last few fixtures. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it impacts them. Carolyn looking frightening as well. So things may be clicking a little bit more for them at the moment.
So this would be the chance to win his first trophy with the club since the League Cup in 2022. Obviously, like you said, Ray, didn't really kind of make a difference for Jonas Eidevall. People were quite keen to kick him out the door. 1 trophy wasn't enough, and rightly so. I think it's really nice actually with that. No? Actually. Okay.
Well, they had
disagreeing. I love it.
Well, they had that difficult season with a load of players injured, and they won the Conti Cup.
Oh, was that ACL season? Was that?
Yeah. Then last season they won the Conti Cup as well, and I think arguably that probably saved them because he got a trophy. And arguably it was the beginning of this season that is what did him in. And I think that's why he kind of lost out. And I think the Conti Cups that they won in the previous couple of years actually were quite beneficial to his reign.
One thing that I really, really love about the League Cup final this year is that it's going to be at Derby County's Pride Park Stadium, which would be really lovely. I think, obviously, living in London, we do have the best of a lot of the women's football with the Wembley stadiums and the Emirates, etc., etc. So it's really nice, actually, that it's gone further afield and it gives everyone a chance to kind of see the games in a different location. So really, really rate that. And it'll be the first Subway final. There's got to be some kind of name in that as well. I still call it the BLT Cup. What was that for?
The Barclays League Trophy. I think that's an absolute genius name. We asked our listeners to give us a new name for the Subway Cup, and the BLT Cup was the best one.
The thing about that name is that it's got another sponsor in the title.
That's why we acronym it. We acronym and no one knows.
What about the Big League Trophy?
Yeah.
Yeah, also works.
Banging League Trophy.
And this is why I'm in creative. So one of the big talking points around this game was the reason behind Bunny Shaw's absence. She missed this game to protect her mental well-being. She was subjected to racist and misogynistic abuse after their 4-3 defeat to Arsenal in the WSL. Just to sort of touch on this, I think it kind of felt like to me a moment that I had been waiting for. I think in the worst way, I was kind of bracing myself for a moment in which some of the sections of fans that I've seen kind of come into the games more aggressive. Definitely always love the passion, but I think we have noticed definitely a ramp up in some of the comments online. And I think this was bound to happen at some point. I feel kind of almost like Yeah, I've been waiting for this moment, and it feels really, really sad. And I don't think it'll be the last time that this happens. I think with some of the subsections of fans that we're seeing come to the games, I think these kind of opinions and this negativity and the toxicity has started to creep in a little bit. And I do feel a little bit nervous for the game, if I'm being honest and quite personal about it.
Particularly on social media as well, and that's the thing. From what I can gather, it was on social media, and to see that she's wiped her Instagram as well, I can't even imagine how that made her feel. It's disgusting. It's so disappointing. I was a little bit disappointed as well in the way that it was handled by the WPLL in terms of the statement that they put out. And in the same kind of week or a week later, I think it was the same week, Millie Bright had put out a statement about receiving abuse from fans and telling her she was shit or something, and then asking for a shirt, etc. And I just felt conflating those two issues was not the right thing to do, and it was disappointing. I think recognizing how damaging that would have been for Bunny, and it's something that really needs to get a handle on. It just kind of showed that while we talk a lot about how inclusive the women's game is, there's still a lot of spaces that need work, particularly when it comes to diversity. And I just feel like conflating those two issues just kind of showed the work that still needs to be done.
No, definitely. I think just to add some further context to that. So there was a statement released from the WPLL about Bunny Shaw, referencing the incident, also involving Millie Bright, that Rachel touched upon there about, I think Millie Bright had gone over to a fan to sign some autographs, and then the fan had said something along the lines of that she was shit. Obviously, that constitutes verbal abuse, which is even worse, I think, because it's your own fan base that are doing that to you.
And not condoning it. Like, that's a shit thing to happen as well.
Absolutely awful. But yeah, the WPLL kind of bundles both things into the same thing. And obviously they're very separate, very distinct topics, very distinct issues that both require very different approaches and different levels of understanding. Obviously, I think diversity at the moment in the WPLL is, the sort of senior leadership team is largely comprised of non-Black, Asian and ethnic minorities. And I think there is definitely some learnings and sort of development that needs to take place in sort of the way that they approach these situations and the way that they're handled as well. There is an investigation into the racist and misogynistic abuse against Bunny, and it'll be really interesting to see sort of what the findings of that show. But I do... I just feel upset. I feel disappointed, but I also feel like I've been bracing for this moment for quite a long period of time. I remember when I was with Spurs, actually, that was one of the first times I think that I'd come across, I think because when you've been in the game for such a long period of time and you've known it as a very kind of, I've always known it personally as a very kind of welcoming, diverse, inclusive space, especially being a gay player. I've always had very LGBTQ plus dressing rooms. I've always sort of been in environments where I've been very much accepted. And then I think because the fan bases were so small when I was, going through the game, generally people who came along to the game generally cared about women's football and getting it in the right direction. And I think one of the sad things is, like, I almost feel like be careful what you wish for, because I think with more money, more attention, more investment, more fans coming to the games, you naturally get also people whose values don't align with those kind of not traditional values, but the old school values that I saw women's football have when I was going through the game. So yeah, in kind of asking for more money and more investment and more attention and more growth, it kind of feels like it's also brought along things that have been quite negative.
I was just going to say respect as well to Bunny for recognising that she needs to take the time away to protect her mental health. Definitely. I think even that in itself is a difficult thing to do. She loves playing football, it's her job, and I just think massive respect to her to be able to recognise that I'm going to step away from this situation to protect her mental health. So hopefully she's getting all that support that she needs from the club.
100%. And I think, it definitely sounds like she will have been getting that support, I hope, but also support for other players who will have been by that as well. Obviously, it's really impacted Bunny because it's been directly aimed at her, but also other players probably don't feel as safe, maybe, with what's happened. So yeah, from us at the Upfront team, sending love thoughts to Bunny, and yeah, massive respect, and for choosing to take yourself away and come back at a point that was good for you, and come back she bloody well did. Returned to the FA Cup at the weekend and bloody scored. So fuck you, haters. Chelsea's 2-0 victory over West Ham in the other League Cup semi-final means City will face Chelsea in the League Cup final on the 15th of March. 4 days later, they'll face each other again in the first leg of the Champions League quarter-finals. You just can't write the deja vu that keeps on happening this season. Listener Josie has asked us on Blue Sky, you say, thoughts on City and Chelsea playing against each other 4, potentially 5 times in March. How do you think playing back-to-back might affect the results, and will City target certain matches given their thinner squad? That's a beefy question, listener Josie.
First of all, you said you were getting bored of the Arsenal-Man City fixture. I think that might be replaced very soon. And I love how we're all just assuming they're going to draw each other in the FA Cup as well. It's just like it's going to happen, isn't it? So we will see. That's later on this evening. It's a really interesting one in terms of how they approach them, you know, how they learn from each fixture. Gareth Taylor touched in a previous pre-match press conference recently where he basically said that like the squad wasn't built yet for multiple competitions in terms of depth, which I thought was quite interesting because it felt a little bit like getting an excuse out there before a potential loss, you know, that kind of way. But the one thing I will say, which I think benefits both Chelsea and Manchester City in terms of other teams they could have faced in the Champions League, is that they will absolutely know each other really, really well. So in terms of preparing for the fixture, you know, they've probably got so much information about each other that maybe they wouldn't necessarily have had if they were playing a Wolfsburg or a Bayern, for example. So, you know, who benefits the most from that? I don't know. I think...
But it feels like it could be a standoff. It's like, okay, well, do you adapt how you think they're going to set up because you know Chelsea so well?
They'll do like a rock, paper, scissors, and they'll be like... You can have the League Cup and the League win, and we're taking the Champions League fixtures.
I mean, just to 100% confirm, we are not suggesting by any means that any of the teams will be throwing away or will be subject to any kind of like competition irregularities, but it would make sense for clubs to prioritise the trophies that they think they have the best chance of winning. And
like, it's a funny one because for City, they're going to be like, the league is probably gone, right? So that's probably not the most important fixture. For Chelsea, they'd probably look at the league and go, you know, we can afford to drop points. It's not that big a deal. So I feel like we're going to end up at like a 0-0 draw there. Man City will be like, throw everything at the Conti Cup or the Subway Cup. We can get a trophy here. This is super important. And then, I don't know.
I think Chelsea are going to be greedy though. I think
Chelsea want them all.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's really clear. And it's not just Chelsea want it all and could definitely 100% get it all, but they could also do it on an invincible run. And I think that's the scariest fucking thing. Like a draw to Chelsea, I think they'd take that as a loss. I think honestly, when we talk about like Emma Hayes and like what she achieved and like what Sonia's going for, it's fucking scary. It's so scary. But yeah.
But equally, Man City have been wounded early on this year. They're going to want to win everything as well. You know, it's so hard to call. I just hope they don't draw each other in the FA Cup. You just be like, do you know what? I'm done. We're going to have 5 episodes of us reviewing Manchester City, Chelsea. Chelsea, no. Manchester City.
We won't.
Do you know what the good thing is, though, Chloe? Is that it does mean I can go and cover the Arsenal games and I can cover Manchester City and Chelsea's quarterfinals as well in the Champions League. So greedily, it's really handy.
Oh, well, I'm glad it personally benefits you. Yeah, 100%. That's how all football should be decided. Does it benefit you? How freaking selfish. Thought you were better than that. Clearly not. Let's run through the rest of the Champions League draw. We've got Arsenal being drawn with Real Madrid, Bayern with Lyon, and Wolfsburg with Barcelona. What do we make of the draw? We had a question in from listener Shalvi who asked if we have any early predictions. I'm going to say Arsenal over Real Madrid. I'm going to say Lyon, and I'm going to say Barca.
I think these are such tasty quarterfinals.
Aren't they?
Every single one of them is going to be unreal. And I also think every team in each of those fixtures has a chance. I know.
Which ones are you going to, Rach?
I'm doing the Arsenal, Real Madrid, Arsenal ones, and then we'll be doing the Chelsea, Man City ones, whichever way around they are.
Sweet, cool.
You know, I think it's hard to look beyond Barcelona. It always is, particularly in this competition. You know, Lyon, good form. They all could win. Arguably, they all could win their games. I think what's cool is we're going to have an English team in the semi-final. That's cool.
Yeah.
So when it comes to actually winning the Champions League, arguably the best time for an English team to win it is this year, with 3 of them still being in the quarterfinals. But, you know, it just doesn't feel like there's a really obvious winner in those fixtures. I mean, maybe Barcelona, but Wolfsburg have done things before.
It's not an obvious winner in any one of those, and I've just started with Arsenal, Lyon, Barcelona.
But one of those, like, on their day,
it could be 100%.
Do you know what I mean? Which I think is super exciting.
Yeah, 100%. I just, I'm gonna put my flagpole in the sand, and I've said it how it is. But listen, Shalvi, let us know if you think differently.
I hope that was helpful. We're just don't know. Chloe, very helpful. Me, not at all.